our um, our patients when we meet them.
Mm-hmm.
They approach you, but they're not sure how you're going to respond to them because, in our culture, we don't we say no, I ain't crazy,
Right.
I ain't claiming that,
Mm-hmm.
and we try to pray these things away,
Mm-hmm.
and we seek help in areas with the church and different things. And some churches are accepting of it and they would try to help and
Mm-hmm.
refer. And then you have
Mm-hmm.
some patients some churches who are not helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They try to get that person to say to pray that demon off of them instead of saying, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you need medication. You need to
Right.
go and continue with your doctor's visit, continue taking your medication, and we'll be here for you to help you
Mm-hmm.
through this and as a support system. So you do have patients like that.
Mm. And you know what? I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. How and why that takes place? At what point does that person, become just dispensable to everyone? Because I've seen it done, and as you said, we all have family
Mhm.
members, and I've seen it where it's just like they're non-existent at some point, and the care is not there, the love is not there anymore.
Mhm.
So for you and your situation, what would you say the reason for that is?
Because we remember these people when we grew up with them and we see them one way. Because my that one family member that I was talking about, she was not always ill, mentally ill. She
Mhm.
was normal, working, everything, got married, and then something happened during her marriage,
Mhm.
that caused her to have a mental break.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then after that, no, she's divorced, she's by herself,
Mhm.
living by herself, she's on medication, and no family members coming around and all of that. So I grew
Mhm.
up with her in my home. And growing up as a child, we knew one another. So you knew her
Mhm.
one way, and now here it is, she's different. So
Mhm.
I think a lot of times people have a hard time accepting that change,
Right.
and
Right.
realizing that this person needs me to be here more,
Mhm.
instead of having a hands-off approach. I don't have nothing to do with her because
Mhm.
my head
Mhm.
ain't good.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Right. Because most of the
it,
time our head isn't good, but we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. I'm not gonna jump the gun. I'm not gonna jump the gun. So you mentioned that the church will sometimes encourage or for them to, continue to take their medications. I
mhm,
don't know the difference in what's administered in the Bahamas opposed to here in the US. So would you say that the medications that are administered, are
mhm.
they helpful? Are they furthering the confusion and the condition? Or, you know what I mean? Is it so many side effects that it's like, oh, we get the benefit of keeping you stable, but then we deal with, other symptoms?
All of them have their side effects, every last one. And then you have some that really keeps the person almost in a zombie-like
Sedated state.
state.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just barely functioning. They just follow instructions. They just shuffle, 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 shuffle. And then you have some medication where they're able to function and be gainfully employed and interact with people. But so there are going to be times when um, they have a little a little break, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
But for those persons, I would say that the medication is helpful, especially if it's not causing them to hurt themselves or hurt other people around them.
Mm-hmm.
You do have some people who also do well on just group therapy and behavioral therapy. Different other aspects other than medication,
Mm-hmm.
and depending on the patient, definitely they would benefit more from different aspects other than medication.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
so yeah.
Now, because you have experience in both the healthcare field,
Mhm.
and also family, your personal life,
Yes.
would you say that you've seen the stage of development from maybe a basic trauma, or
Mhm.
anxiety, depression, all the way up
Yes.
to the more intense stages of mental illness? Have you watched that develop in any one person specifically? I'm not asking for names. I'm just asking, have you seen that carry out?
Mhm. Yes. Um, like I said, some families have one incidence of mental illness, and some families have multiple. And I just happen to be one of those persons who have multiple.
Yeah.
So there is in my family uh, a gentleman who was experiencing some mental illness. He was active. He was a businessman. He worked. He had a family and everything, and then something happened,
Mm,
and then eventually it ended up where he committed suicide. So
mm,
it was a progress, and so that is how that ended up.
okay.
So there were incidences where it always was something that happened that
Hmm.
led to that break
Okay.
of those persons.
Okay. And I'm saying
Yeah.
this to say, because sometimes people see it when it's fully developed and it's a
Yes.
disconnect from themselves and that person, but it can be you, it can be me, it can be
Yes.
any of us, right? And so that's the point of the line of questioning, is to establish that this is not a occurrence that can't take place to any of us. It
Yes.
starts off small, starts off with the depression, with the anxiety, and with life events.
Mhm.
And these life
Mhm.
events leads to, further conditions that we're speaking about today. And I'm saying this because in the study, we're doing a comparative study today.
Okay.
And you're going to help us. We're going to move forward to the next question. In this comparative study, you've seen the behaviors of psychiatric patients because you work
Mhm.
in that department, and you also live in society, so you see people, right? And you see,
Yes.
you communicate with people all over the world, so not just in Bahamas, but you see other people. And so I want
Mhm.
us to see the behaviors that you see of psychiatric patients in comparison to the average person. And are some of these behaviors similar? Maybe different, maybe more minute, but similar. Like someone may say, "Oh man, this guy, he's on the street, he's crazy, he's talking to himself." I mean, a
Like
lot of us
myself
talk to
too.
ourselves.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know about you. Call me crazy, right? But
Yeah.
so I think it's definitely possible. And when you can pinpoint it and you're able to see it in yourself, we can see that
Yes.
we're all suffering from something. We're
Yes.
all suffering from something. So, what are some of these behaviors? I have a pen, so I'm going to write them down. But what are some of these behaviors that you've seen working with psychiatric patients?
Okay. So a lot of them fidgety.
Okay.
So these are some physical. They're fidgety. They have tics. I call them tics. So
Okay.
you'll see them. There was an experience that I had where an, a young patient with autism, and she liked buttons.
Mm,
And she came towards me because she wanted to touch the button on my nursing uniform.
mhm,
And I did like this. I didn't know what she was coming towards me to do. I was like, no way. I like down in here today. So I did like this.
mhm,
When I did like this, she held on to my hands.
mm,
And she is so strong. She was so strong. I was
mm.
like, and another nurse had to move her away. And then she explained, okay, she just wanted to touch your buttons.
Okay.
So
Okay.
they are obsessed with certain things that, certain, depending on the mental illness, they're
Mhm,
fidgety. A lot of times you notice they shy away. They're not as talkative as they normally would be. And eating disorders too.
mhm,
Eating a lot because it comfort food where they feel that they eat a lot, and it causes them to And
Oh,
then
yeah. They overeat. Yes.
overeat, right.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
then you have anxiety. Some people actually have full out panic attacks,
Mm.
difficulty breathing. And a lot of times they present to the emergency room, or I'm having pain in my chest. Um, these are some things that, and a lot of times they have pain. They just complain of pain. I have pain in my back or aches. And then uh, there's, after doing a bunch of investigations, doctors can't find out, okay, what's wrong with this person.
Mm.
So that also is
Okay.
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 um,
Hmm. Okay. Have you seen any of these behaviors in some way, shape, or form amongst the so-called normal people in
yes,
this
when I
world?
worked at the polyclinics, you'll have people coming in and you see them over and over. They're frequent visits, frequent,
Mm-hmm.
oh doc, this happened, I've been having headaches, I've been, I'm not sleeping properly. That's another
Mm-hmm.
not
Yes.
sleeping.
Yes. Yeah.
um and they come in with aches and pain. They come in with GERD, can't breathe, um, feeling irritable, I guess, feeling of dread that something is gonna happen, racing hearts, heartbeat. Like they probably tell you they're having a heart attack when they're not having a heart attack. Shortness of breath, like I said earlier. Sweating, hands. These are other signs that you would see with these persons coming in. And these are people that come in when you see them frequenting the emergency room or frequenting the clinics. Then sometimes the doctors would say, "Okay, I'm going to refer them."
Mm. Mm. Okay. Now, the doctors are familiar with the behaviors and with the condition, and people who have been trained. Would you
Mhm.
say that the police officers are also trained to understand mental illness? I'm looking at something here where it says police respond to calls related to mental health crisis situations, are often ill equipped to handle safely and effectively. Fatal outcomes are not uncommon. In 2021, at least 104 people were killed after police responded to someone behaving erratically or having a mental health crisis.
Here in the Bahamas, you might have an incident where the police might rough up a mentally ill person or anything like that. But
Mhm.
for the most part, they are quite familiar with who they are
Okay.
because we
Yeah.
live on an island.
Yes.
So
Yes.
they're quite familiar with them because they probably have to deal with them on a regular basis, or you'll have the family calling them in to say, well, he need to go and he
Mm-hmm.
need to go now because I don't want him in my house, or
Mm-hmm.
I don't want her in my house or whatever. So they're very familiar with them. Of course, they would have to restrain them,
Mm-hmm.
but what I've seen, or when I've seen them in the emergency room restrained, they're not bruised or anything like that. They're just restrained. They don't look like they were
Mm-hmm.
physically beaten or anything like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So I'm thinking for the most part that our our police officers, because they're so familiar with the who they are.
Mm-hmm. That they
They
Now, how are they treated from everyone? Like, because this Nubian Melaninite dominated, do they get more assistance? Do people help them more? Do they say, hey, let me buy you something to eat? Let me help you with something to drink? Those who are on the streets, I'm asking, do they get, a little bit more attention?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
They do.
That's great.
You've seen you see people giving them $1, or but these are the ones that we are familiar with. These are the faces that we see on a daily basis. We
Mm,
know, okay, well, okay, let me give you something to buy breakfast. You had breakfast today. We actually have one that does, he sings a lot. It's Jeremy.
okay.
Jeremy is a colorful person, flamboyant. He does videos. People have videos of him out there, and whenever people see him, they would always buy him something or give
Mm,
him a ride or something like that. We did have an incident where somebody tried to hurt him, and there
mm,
was mass public outcry against that.
mm.
So we
Okay.
right. So people generally don't take kindly to anything happening to our persons who are mentally ill.
Okay, good. See, Bahamas is I'm loving what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah,
You know,
I know we do have, mind you, would
mhm,
have some people who would try to hurt them,
mm,
right? Especially
mhm,
those persons who don't understand them,
mhm,
or I guess fear of the unknown, fear of
mhm,
what this person can do. They let
mhm,
just see a mentally ill person,
mhm.
and there have been incidents of the actual public, like a neighbor hurting um,
Okay.
somebody. But as far as the general public,
Mhm,
they usually have would hand them $1 or buy them breakfast or something. But
mm.
we do have incidences of people hurting mentally ill people, and I think it's because they fear, it's fear of the unknown. You know, you're not sure of what this person is going to or what this person is capable of because they're mentally ill. You thinking they probably could be violent towards you. So if they before they're violent towards you, let me hurt them before they try and hurt me, even though they probably even make a move to hurt the person. But we've had incidents where people were actually hurt.
Mm, okay.
Yeah.
Now, it seems like, your system is a little more intact. One day, hopefully, we can do the same episode with someone from America to kind of just, and they can paint the picture and you can see the difference. But with the system that they have in place there, would you say that there's a system that should be created at home to prevent these mental illnesses, to prevent, just having so many melanated people ending up in these conditions? And if so, what should this system consist of,
I
starting at
think
home?
I feel
Mhm,
for the most part we need, like I said, it's a workable system where our they are being attended to and cared for. However, there's still room for improvement. I feel that education on mental illness and the types of mental illness that we have here in the Bahamas, more education as far as for neighbors and family members, because
mhm,
we do have some of them who are homeless. My daughter mentioned the other day when she is in the US,
mhm,
and she said, "Mommy, why do we have mentally ill people and homeless people on our streets?" And she said, "Do we have a hospice or someplace for them to be?" And I said, "For the most part, we don't. We have people who would feed them. So we have like soup kitchens and places that would actually feed them a lunch or a breakfast. But as far as where do they sleep at night, they sleep on the road and out in the open. So I feel that that is something that we need to look into, educating the public more on mental illness, how to deal with your mentally ill neighbor. And I think we need to have a safe place for them to go to sleep at night. That's
okay.
how I feel. Because there have been incidences of, like, if you have a storm passing or anything, they just pick them up and put them in jail or something like that.
Mhm, mhm,
But that's not what should be happening.
mhm,
We need a safe place with professional people who would know how to deal with them, to make sure if these persons are on medication, do they have the medication with them, or how to deal with them and keep them safe. You
mhm.
know, even if
Okay.
it's just for them to be there for like a couple hours at night to sleep and then they leave in the day.
Mhm,
I think that's something that we can work on.
mhm.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things you mentioned is the education,
Yes.
people being educated on the different types of mental illnesses. So educate us, please. Let us know what are some of these mental illnesses? What should people be aware of? What are people ignorant to as it pertains to mental health?
So people are, I think, because of our culture here in the Bahamas, we think that when you're crazy, we could just pray that demon away. And a lot of things they've been possessed by an evil spirit,
Mm.
right? But I mean, and it's just the ignorance of it all. Whilst I don't have a problem with praying for these people,
Mhm.
after you have already said your prayer, now what?
Now what?
Right? So you have persons who are depressed. Even in our own congregation, you have depression is a mental illness.
Mm.
Anxiety is a mental illness. And a lot of times we go through depression and mental illness. Like you said, us, like you want to call us normal, the
Mhm.
normal ones go through depression and anxiety.
Mm.
Then you have bipolar disorder,
Yes.
right? And
Mhm.
they have mood swings. They're depressed 1 minute, then they are, so they can go from manic to depressed. So
Mhm.
there are different levels with bipolar, and then you have schizophrenics.
Yes.
Then you
Mhm.
have people who have a psychotic event because they were exposed to alcohol or drugs, you know. So that would event that causes them to have a psychotic event. And we have a number of behavioral disorders too amongst children,
Mm.
you know, that would be categorized as, I guess, a mental illness where they need to be treated. You know, it doesn't have to be taking a pill, but
Mhm.
whatever therapy that they behavioral therapy that they need to go through, they would go through. If they need to be consistent with seeing a psychologist or even a psychiatrist, then
Mhm.
that's another way of stuff that you can look for, you know.
Mhm. Now, a
So,
person hearing this would say, "Oh my goodness, it's just a bunch of black people. You're on an island. It's nice. It's sunny. What's the problem?" Here we have a reason. We have a reason. So, what would you say is the leading cause? Is it the alcohol? Is it the drugs? What is the problem?
all right. So here in the Bahamas, everybody en route to the United States,
Mm.
it's a drug. They drugs pass through the Bahamas,
Mm.
and that's been from time immemorial. We've had drugs passing through. My family, even the Battles, were rum runners. I call them rum runners because during that time you know, they used to bootleg liquor.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
have these are contributing factors where drugs pass through the Bahamas. That's a known fact, and alcohol was at one point illegal and had to be passed through the Bahamas also. And a lot of times you have people who are stressed out with the recent COVID and the lockdown. A lot of people lost their jobs, they lost their homes. So their stress level is up. And the
Mhm.
minute that they can try to, I guess, self medicate,
Mhm. Mhm.
they turn to certain vices as drugs and alcohol.
Mm.
And then there were times where we have what we call regattas. And
Ricardo.
almost every family island has a regatta.
What's the
And
regarder?
a regatta is a party time. You go to Cat Island and they
Oh.
have music, they have liquor, dancing, all kind of things. Go to Andres, the regatta. Or it's a
Mm.
regatta, you just go from one island to the next and you party for the weekend and then
Mm.
you come back home.
Wow, okay.
I've never
So
been. I've never been.
okay. You
So
never been I was gonna say it sound real familiar. No, I'm kidding. So here we
no,
have
so
club hopping, there you have island hopping. Okay.
yes, island hopping.
Island hopping.
Just to
Okay.
have fun and
So
interact.
which ways would you say, if any, that racism is a stress factor? Or would you say you don't have that problem?
No, I think we have racism here. we do. Our little island is, we've been impacted. We are, well, I always say we are one of the colonies.
Mhm.
Okay, so initially, even the very hospitals that I worked in, the Sandilands Rehabilitation Center, Princess Margaret Hospital, we are a colony, one of the colonies. That's how we would have been referred to. Um,
Mhm.
so we have been impacted by racism, white supremacy, I would like to say, because the very constitution that we have was handed to us by our colonial masters.
Mhm.
So it's 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 here, whether we would like to believe it or not. It's here.
Mhm.
Yes,
Okay. So you have racism, you have alcohol, substance
and we have
abuse and
colorism too.
drugs, colorism. Okay.
Yes, we call it
Wow.
colorism
Mhm.
because some kids are dark skinned like me,
Mhm.
and some in the same family you have some who we call mango skin. They look brighter,
Mango skin.
mango skin, mango yellow.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay,
So,
got it.
right, not green, mango yellow. But
Okay,
yeah,
and that
so
becomes a
we have
factor.
colorism. It is a factor because
Mm.
you'll have where some children are treated differently because of the color. That little black
Mhm.
gal with a nappy head, you
Mm.
know,
Mhm.
that would have been me. You know,
But now we're at a point where you're like, "Yes, thank you for the ether. Thank you
listen, I
for
love
the
my
yeah, thank you
melanin,
for the
love
yes,
it,
and
my
thank you for the
curly
melanin.
hair.
It's the best gift you can have."
Yes,
So then now what about the physical traumas? What would you say are some of the physical traumas that leads to
mental illness.
yes. Mhm.
Here it would be abuse. That would be rape, physical abuse with physical abuse and rape, and
Mhm.
also trauma through, I guess, crime. A lot of times you have people who would um, who would be in situations where they feel that they can't get out, so they would
Mm.
rather stay in that situation. So
Mm.
mental and physical abuse here is a trauma. Is a basically it's on the rise too now.
Mm.
uh, Um, here, and
Okay.
those would definitely lead to
To deep
mental illness. Yeah,
mental illness. Okay. Now, if you had to say one thing to encourage people to at least examine mental illness and not in the most extreme cases, but just in themselves, what would you tell
Mhm.
them to look for? What would you tell them out of all the things you gave us? What are some of the things that you like, listen, it's in each and every one of us in some ways, but this is the way that has most commonly affected us, and this is what we need to take a deeper look at.
I would use myself as an example. There are times when you get so overwhelmed and you know you have things to do and you just can't get around to doing those things.
Mm,
You'll go to work and you come back and that thing is just staring you in the eye. Say, girl, you know you need to do something with me. And you say,
yeah.
all right, I got you. I can do this. I can do this. I make plans. You write your
Mm,
list. Number one, da 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 da, do this. Number
yeah.
two, and that list will stay with you and stay with you. And then
Mm,
eventually you throw that vape in the garbage.
mm,
You get to the point where you become like a deer in the headlights. You know you need to do something.
mm,
You know, and you can't do it. But you have
mm,
to recognize it that is something is going on. So
mm.
you need to seek help. Like I always say, I my husband always say, call someone in to help you clean the house.
Mm,
It's like,
mm.
no, wait, I want to do this first before I call the person in. Isn't that being a crazy woman? So that is those are things that you really need to look for. You have to accept, okay, This house is bigger than me. I'm still gainfully employed. Let me listen to this man and call someone in. So those are things that just a little things. And these are little things that we overlook and we think, okay, this is all right to do. This is all right to do, to just stand still and not do anything. I'm in
Mhm.
an okay place. I'm crazy talking to
Mhm.
myself. But
Mhm.
these are signs of some kind of mental
Yeah. Yeah.
illness. You're going through something.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I can only use myself as an example. So you have to do, I call it doing a postmortem assessment at the end of
Mhm.
the day. When I was in active nursing, even now I try to do it. I look at my day. What went well?
Mhm.
What didn't go well? How could I have done any better? And what do I need to do? But you have to do it. And you have to accept what didn't go well
Mhm.
and say,
Mhm.
okay, I'm not just going to say what didn't go well. Even if I just do one thing, one day, set out 30 minutes to do that one thing and do it. But you have to recognize it and you have to look within. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, so if I'm looking within,
Yeah.
many people have desires, they have wants, they have things that they aspire to do. And so,
Mhm.
have you seen depression be, as a result of not being able to obtain those things? What would you, can you give us some insight?
So, a lot of times when you look within and you're not able to do those things, so like Pastor Shaw always tells us, we're not breathing properly.
Mm,
And a lot of times when you're anxious and you're going through something, you're depressed, you don't breathe properly.
mm,
And it's core, you need to be, oh God, aware. What is
mhm,
it? Something that he says, I can't remember.
mm,
But you have to be aware that you're not breathing properly.
mhm, mhm.
Sometimes you be like, you
Yeah,
know,
you have to be
take a breath.
mindful of your breathing.
Mindfulness.
Yes,
That's
yes,
it.
yes.
Mindfulness. You have to
Mhm,
be mindful. You're not breathing properly. Sometimes you hold your breath and you're not realizing it,
mm,
you know.
mm,
So you have to be mindful, but you have to recognize it. And a lot of people don't recognize it.
mm.
So we need every day to be intentional. I always say this to my son, and then I say I need to apply it to myself too. I
Mhm.
say, Kyle, you need to be intentional, to be aware, and you need to be present.
Mhm. Then you look at yourself like, "I need to be intentional. I
I
need
said,
to be
look, I
aware.
need to.
I need to be
That's
present."
right. I need to do
Yes,
all those things.
yes. Okay. All right. So before we close out, I want to ask a few questions coming from the audience. If you have
Okay.
anything, type it in. I have a couple here. And then I would like for you to give us a message before we leave. Give us some inspiration. Let us know, what is the solution? What solution? I always, like to not just give the problem, but also the solution. So we'll be looking forward to that as well.
Mhm.
Here I have, you mentioned colonialism. What effects would you say still linger and its effect mentally?
Okay, so I can speak from the healthcare profession.
Mm-hmm.
The hospital that we have was started by, I'm gonna say it, yes, our colonial masters.
Okay, say
It
it.
was started by
Mm-hmm.
them. It
Mm-hmm.
was even named after them, Princess Margaret Hospital. Yes.
Mm,
So, and the structure, the physical structure is the same. They
mm,
might have added some wings and done a lot of renovations. They're still doing renovations on it.
mm,
However, the structure has outgrown the population,
mm,
so there's still some systems in place where I feel there's still room for growth as
mm,
far as the hierarchy. You know, when
mm,
you look at how people are treated, how staff is treated, how you know, it's just a lot that I think that's still in place there. It's not let's work together. It's like
Okay.
I'm in charge and you
Mm,
do as you're told.
okay.
And even if you have an idea or a suggestion on how we can change, you're seen as being combative. You're not seen as somebody who is that they can benefit from. You know, so I don't feel that they do proper mentorship. Um,
Okay.
I think even if it's there, it's not as effective as it probably could be.
Hmm.
So, and I think that stems from colonialism, where we were handed our way of doing things, and instead of trying to change and improve on it or do better, it's still the same.
Hmm.
To me, that's how I, from working there for so many years, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm. Okay. RN Sherese Hanna, Mother Sherese Hanna, Wife Sherese Hanna. This
Yes.
was the question I received. As a mother and a wife, what are some things you do to protect, create a hedge around, and guide the psyche of your family, which you may be able to share with us today?
Okay. So some things that I do is that my two oldest kids are not here. They're in the United States. I can't reach out to touch them, but
Mm.
my husband and I always try to reach out to them. There's been so many times we had to talk our son off the ledge, not a physical ledge, but
But
he's
calm down.
studying medicine, and it could get like, he's been through a rough patch where we had to really talk to him and encourage him and say, you got this. Listen,
Mm.
it's in your DNA. You don't have no
Mm.
other choice.
Mm.
And he's at the point now where he looks back and he's so grateful for those times when um, he was just overwhelmed emotionally. And it does
Mm.
get to them. So when you have to be present in their lives, even though you're not present physically, always listen, I ain't hear from you in a day or a full day's past. I need to hear from
Mhm.
you. We have a group chat. Talk in this group.
Mhm.
Must
Me
do,
too.
my blessings.
Yes.
How is everybody? Roll call. So
Yes.
we do things like that. Then we have a group call where you talk to everybody on the call one time. So these are things that we do. We always want to know what's going on, what's challenging you, and then you would have them telling on one another. I call it telling on one another. So one will say, because they're very clannish, they
Mm.
talk to one another. They'll talk
Mhm.
every day to one
Okay.
another. So
Mhm.
one person is going through something, the other person will call either me or my husband and say, this is what this person is going through
Going
or
through.
whatever. Y'all need to talk to them. Or so that's what
Mhm.
we
That's good.
um,
Good thing.
that's what another thing we've established in them. And with the youngest still being in the home, the two oldest would call him
Okay.
and do a group chat with him. So they always try to call him, and then he'll ask questions. Was Michael and Mikhail like this, or did they graduate like this, or did they? He'll always try to compare himself with them. I said, well, okay, they were different, but you still,
Yes.
you would
Yes.
have to let him know that you are all individuals, and we love you all. We love all of you.
Mhm.
So it's just that encouraging, constant. You have to be constant. You have to be a constant in your children's life,
Say
and that's
children.
that. Yeah,
Go ahead.
and that's one thing that we try to do. Always be constant.
Yes.
Some things that they'll tell their dad that they wouldn't tell me, and he'll come to me and say, "Oh, did you talk to them? They said this and they said that." I said, "Well, they talked to the right person, especially
Hmm.
when it comes down to money, you know. So they talked to the right person,
They
you
hit the
know.
right
So
line today.
they
Yeah.
know who to go to when they need certain things." Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a great thing. That's a great system. Um, many people say children are resilient, yet would you say they're not as resilient as many people think, especially based off your last response?
I think children learn to adapt. I think I was just listening to a podcast where they spoke about children being exposed to stress or trauma in their young life, and
Mm-hmm.
it affects them. It affects them. It changes them psychologically. It
Mm-hmm.
changes you. It affects you. It impacts you. So when you say they are resilient, I would say that they've learned to adapt. They've learned to adapt to whatever the situation is that they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's us as parents to help our children, to protect our children.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, I know you need to make them aware of certain things, but then certain traumas can affect who they become in the long run.
Mm.
So,
Okay. So now you are very experienced in the healthcare field. Has your experience maybe encouraged them to, move in maybe not the exact direction, but in a direction that will encourage them to be highly educated? And now you're also working in pharmaceuticals. So what is that like? And what was their response to that? How is your family responding to your new positioning?
when I changed my profession because I wanted to be
Mm,
more hands-on with my kids too. I always remember the conversation I had with my husband because I was working night duty, and he was at in that time in his career he was always out to sea, you know,
mm,
because he's in the military. So he's was a naval officer, so he would have to go out to sea for weeks at a time.
mm,
And this is where family members had to help with the kids and all of that. So when I went to him and I said I had an opportunity to transition to another job
mm,
and paid more, I would have been home more, holidays and weekends off.
mm.
And he said, "Okay, go for it. I'll
Good.
be here to support you." And he's always been supportive, even though
Mm.
he'll make you he'll say, "Well, give me, you have to state your case." Don't just say, I leave in this job." Don't say that. You have to say why.
Tell me why. Tell me
What you gonna do?
right.
He said, "You're gonna be an active participant in
Right.
this family." So,
Right.
you know, so
Mm.
it the kids always knew that, okay, if mommy going to work, we home with daddy.
Mhm.
One
Mhm.
thing with him is he always babysat his kids. If he was
Mm.
not here,
Mhm.
then that's when family came in. But he was
Mhm.
always home with them when I had to work. Um,
Mhm.
so they always knew, okay, mommy to work, mommy to work, mommy to work, and
Mm.
we here with daddy. And then when I decided to change professions, it was
Mhm.
like, okay, mommy home now. You know, it was just like, okay, just another day, but mommy's here now.
Mhm.
She's picking us up from school. She's, you know,
Yes.
so I would say that they adapted quite well.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure now they're accustomed
Mhm.
to it, so that's great. What mental issues affect that side of medicine that you're now on, would you say?
I actually promote a psychiatric drug.
You're like, "Take this."
So
Yeah.
I still have interactions with the psychiatric doctors, the nurses and staff at the hospitals, um, the pharmacists there. I still
Mhm.
interact with them now, you know, and even on that's why I can say that to the most part from what I've seen now with the psychiatric help that we have here.
Mhm.
Still a work in progress, but they look out for their patients. They
Okay.
do.
Mm.
So I'll always remember. I shared this with when I visited one of the hospitals, and this patient was just coming back for her something. She was coming back, and she thought I was a patient too. So she was just talking, telling me everything that was going on, and she wanted to know, well, why are you here?
Mhm, 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 mhm.
So that was an experience where you were like, hey, listen, but you try not to be so judgmental. At that
Mhm.
point, I was like, I ain't crazy like you, but come to find out, all of us have all the crazy going on,
Right,
you know.
right, right, right. Okay, I have two more questions for you. How would you say your faith, or what role would you say your faith plays in blockage, or your prevention of further mental illnesses, in your family, with your children, amongst, you know what I mean? It just, how has it protected you? How is it protecting your family? Does it play any role? Is your faith important at all in that instance?
My faith is very important. I think your faith and your beliefs are what helps you to actually be who you are, the best that you can be. And when I think of doing prayers, doing true prayers and supplication, it helps it helps with being disciplined. It helps to calm you. It brings a sense of uh, peace.
Mm-hmm,
Is
mm-hmm,
that,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
when you practice sila, it helps. It
Mm,
helps bring balance to
mm.
me. That's been my experience.
I'm gonna push you just a little bit, just a little bit.
Go
This is
ahead.
this was a good push. When you're at the pool with your family, you just want somebody to get in the water, you just push them in. Okay, that's what this is. So when you said true faith, what do you mean by true faith? What does that mean?
That means true faith for me. It means finally believing the right thing, the right thing that addresses your life holistically.
Mm,
Um, that true faith that speaks to you, that speaks to your relationship with your children, it speaks to your relationship with your husband, relationship on the job, relationship with everybody
mm,
that you come in contact with. When you see things happening, that faith, that faith based belief, it
mm.
helps you to learn how to deal with it. I hope I answered that
Yes. Oh no,
properly.
that's a great answer. I love it. That was a great answer. My last question for you, and if you have a message that you want to incorporate in your answer, feel free to. Have we lost our minds? And I think the conversation has said we have, but how have we lost our minds, and how do we gain it back?
I think we've lost our mind when we don't have balance in our life. It's something that we have to strive for every day. You have to look within. I'm going to go right back to those same three words that I use with my son. You have to be intentional in everything you do.
Mm,
Question everything you do. Question, okay, how did this go? Can I do any better? Do I need help?
mm,
You have to ask yourself those questions. You have to be intentional in everything you think, you do, and you say. You have to be present.
mm.
A lot of times you'll hear people say, well, they space right out. I was talking to them and they didn't answer me
Same
because
here.
they on their own their mind.
Mm,
You walk in a room and you say, good afternoon. Some people will hear you, and some people won't.
yes.
And they'll swear you didn't say anything when you came in the room
Hmm.
because they were not present.
It was somewhere else.
They were
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Hmm.
And be aware of how things make you feel. Why is this making me feel this way? Be aware of your feelings and how
Mm.
you know, is this going to cause me to, am I having thoughts of causing harm? Am I having thoughts of harming myself or my family? Am I not breathing properly? Be mindful. Be mindful. And please breathe because we ain't breathing properly. And I say that from experience. If
Yes,
you
yeah.
find yourself winded, short of breath,
Yeah.
okay.
Shallow breathing, we have to
Shallow
begin to
breathing.
looking at deep
Exactly.
abdominal breathing. So maybe that's something we'll incorporate in one of the next episodes. Just
Yes,
that's very good.
meditation.
Mhm.
You need to do it. Mindful meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. I think that was very insightful. And it's an important conversation that people have to begin to just take a look at and be more mindful of and more aware of what other people are going through and how we
Mhm.
can play a part
Yes.
in preventing not just our own conditions, but those around us, people that look
Yes.
just like me and you. And so I want to thank you for your time. I think everyone really enjoyed this episode. I see a lot of good comments below. And so
Thank you.
if, maybe in the future we'll have you back on. If you have any last comments, is there anything that you want to promote, anything that we can support you on? If it is, right now would be the time to speak.
I just want to encourage everybody to be kind to one another. You don't have to like me. You don't have to take me home with you at the end of the day, but be kind and be thoughtful of other people's feelings. And just because people aren't saying that I need help, I'm going through something, doesn't mean that they're not going through something. So a lot of times we try to figure out why they acting like that or why they're not doing this. Be kind, be thoughtful, and try to think, okay, maybe, and don't take everything so personal. Everybody isn't out to get you. So just be kind.
Thank you once again. I really appreciate it. Thank everyone who tuned into the Vantage Point today. We look forward to seeing you next week. If you have any suggestions, any episodes, anything that you want to hear, please leave a comment. We're looking for your feedback. Like, share, subscribe, share with your friends and your family. We really, really, really want to participate in this thing called liberation, Black liberation, this awakening that we're all looking for to take place in our lives. So, what can we do to help you? What can we speak about? Let us know, and we look forward to seeing you next time.